Good morning. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Well, I don't know really what I'm going to talk about too much today. I'm starting to really get depressed by all this bullshit that's going on. The thing that you have to understand is that if Trump keeps increasing the debt the way he is, with this new bill, this big shitty bill of his, then you're going to have some serious problems down the road, because he's going to have to go after other agencies and whatnot to get the money, because he's not going to reduce the tax cuts to these billionaires. All right? But there's two things I've always talked about in most of my life. Once I started reading newspapers and whatnot, and I got involved in the world. So we're talking about the 60s, I guess. There's two things you have to understand. One is what I refer to as the disparity of wealth, and what happens as it gets greater and greater and greater. And I refer back to the French Revolution, where Marie Antoinette was supposedly said, "Let them eat cake." Now, it wasn't meant to be the way they make it sound, but she said it anyhow. The way it's portrayed is this big political statement. But what it basically is saying, that what the people are saying now, is that rich people don't give a shit about the rest of the world, because they don't have to care. For the most part, they don't even see it, because let's face it, if you don't want to see it, you're not going to see it. If you don't want to see poverty in this country, you're not going to see it. Down here it's a little harder, because everything's mixed into one big blend. So you can go around the corner and be in an area you just don't want to be. New York City's a little bit like that too. You can go around the corner and be in an area that's just poverty stricken. You don't want to be there. But as I stated in the past, using the French Revolution as an example, the more you go around with this disparity in wealth, the more the possibility of revolution. Now, when I say revolution, it could be a political revolution, such as a third party, which is what Musk is talking about. But he's talking about a party that's, I don't know what he's talking about, but it's not going to help the average person. Now, there are 300 and some odd million people in here, of which a couple million of them belong to the military services, which are spread out all over the world defending us. So I don't get real upset, with the possibility of a threat to to Americans from the military. National Guard troops are, as a rule, doing it for extra money. They're not exactly the greatest trained troops in the world. They are not trained, in some units, depending on where they're located, are trained in domestic violence situations. In other words, to protect against violence and domestically, dealing with crowd control and such. You can get all the training in the world, but once you have you have 250 people in front of you, you guys are 10 guys or 20 or 30 guys or whatever it is, even 100 guys, and you got 250 people standing in front of you, throwing bottles, spitting at you, and calling you names you never heard of. You're going to open fire. And once you do that, once that happens, it's not going to be like what happened in Kent State back in the day. It's going to be a lot worse. You're going to see retaliation. Back then, there weren't that many arms in the hands of civilians. Now there are more guns and civilians than there are in the military. And we're talking about personal weapons now. We're not talking about bombs and tanks and all this other stuff. You can't roll tanks through the streets of New York. The streets will collapse into the subway tunnels, and you're not going to be. And these tanks are going to get destroyed. You just can't do a lot of things. Tanks aren't built for urban fighting. Okay, you can't sit there and take down a 20-story building with a tank and not have the building come down on top of you. You know, or run into another, trying to get away, run into another building. You can't do that. All right. Tanks work in the Midwest, open fields and whatnot, but you're dealing with a different creature here. When you start dealing with people that are fighting to protect their homes, you're dealing with something entirely different. I don't believe the military is going to become divided if there is such a revolution, but I don't believe we can continue to go in the direction we're going, giving these rich people all they want. Now, you talk about making people go to work that are on Medicaid and whatnot. I have personally seen a lot of fraud in Medicaid. I remember watching welfare cases. I used to work for the phone company in Orange, New Jersey, and there was this building I passed on the way to work, and depending on what day of the week was, there'd be what they call, which was a very expensive car, Chrysler 300s, 2 or 3 of them parked on the street, guys outside polishing the car, doing nothing, you know. And then you'd know when the welfare agents were in the area because the kids would be outside in raggedy clothes and the cars would be gone. Yeah, I know that exists. I know that kind of fraud existed. Okay, I know from personal experience, I know people that are trying to defraud the Social Security system. Believing that they're owed more than they are. I don't know whether they're doing it purposely or they just greed is taking over their thought processes. But I know people like this. So I don't have a lot of problems with people having to go to work to get their benefits, you know. There should be some way to prove that if they can't work, they still get their benefits. You know, they don't have to work because they're of a specific age. They have to be able to, and then you have to find them jobs. They tell them to find them the jobs, you know, because they don't have time to look for work. All right, and then you have to give them some sort of benefit for child care, so that somebody's there to watch the children so that they can work. You know, things like that. But the amount of fraud that's there doesn't dictate what they're doing. They fired a lot of people. Yeah, trust me. The more we use computers, the less we do. The more we use digital storage, the less work there is for non-college graduates, which is the majority of this country, probably. And even for some college graduates, there's less of the jobs that they expect to get paid for. You know, after spending all this money to go to college, they can't find a job that'll pay them enough money to pay back the debt they have. They were misled as to about what a college education is going to do for you. A college education, in some cases, gets you through to an interview. I got a job that required a college education by having somebody recommend me. They sort of required a college education to get an interview, but there was no written rule in the company that you had to have a college education to get the job. So I got the job. You know, I got a lot of jobs that way because my argument was they say experience wanted. Well, where do you go to get the experience? If nobody's going to hire you as an inexperienced worker and let you develop, how are you going to get the experience? In the restaurant industry, I managed to get a lot of jobs in the beginning with no experience at all. Ability, knowledge, but no experience. Okay, but I managed to talk my way into those jobs. That's an individual thing, you know. But going back to what we're talking about, which you started out with using the word disparity, you're pushing yourself towards a cultural civil war. Trump is against everybody because Trump doesn't care. The only time Trump possibly can see a poor person is on the golf course as a caddy. And those caddies make a lot of money. Some of them do. Okay, so it's not a poverty job. But he doesn't see him. He doesn't associate with him. He never has his whole life. You know? I've been around rich people. I've been around politicians and people, and I managed to hold my own with them in conversations and stuff like that. But I don't like them necessarily. Because what's going on inside here? All right. Second word I talk about a lot. Karma. It's also, karma is the what goes around comes around sort of philosophy, you know. The balance of for every good there is an evil, for every evil there is a good, balance in the world, you know. Well, Donald is an evil person, and he's not very intelligent, and I don't want to say he's stupid because that's ridiculous. I mean, he's not stupid, but he's not a genius IQ. He's a master manipulator. He's a fraud, and eventually, what happens to people like that is karma catches up to them. Now, karma could come in the form of physical loss, health loss, mental loss, whatever, you know. And it doesn't necessarily have to affect him personally. It can affect his family. Although, that wouldn't bother him because he doesn't care about his family. So, I don't know what's going to happen to him. But he's building up what they call a lot of bad karma. And when you see that and you say, well, look, and nothing happens to these guys and they die peacefully and everything, you say, where's the karma in it? Check out what goes on with his family. Because karma comes and gets you. There's no getting away from it. All right? Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen to him. I do know something. You don't wish evil on people because that shit comes back to haunt you, you know. But I don't wish anything good on him either. So I'm sort of, and to wish what happens to him, I'm sort of neutral, you know. It's like I know I can't be in the same room with him because I'd be too tempted to attack him because he's just such a slimy scumbag. You know, it just drips off of him. And from what I understand, people have stopped, you know, talking about his body odor and stuff, so I don't know whether he finally got his asshole fixed or what, you know. But I'm not going to worry about that. I have my own personal problems to deal with, and I'm old. So that's just part of getting old. All right, listen, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. You get more of this wandering bullshit in the mornings, you know. For those of you that do watch this every once in a while, I'm going to try to do some live videos. It'll be the same time as this one is posted, around 11 o'clock. And between 10:30 and 11:30 is when I usually post them. So I'd be doing them live instead. Just saves me some time if I do them live, because then I don't have to edit. I don't have to go back and go around and post them to the various channels and whatnot. I'll let you know. I'll post it everywhere if I decide to do that. I'm still trying to learn some things, you know, and I need it explained simply to me. All right. So everybody have a good day, and we will see you tomorrow.